So as I close out this panel, no introduction is needed for this next individual. I know we all have been talking about her in our Malayali community. Sini Stephan, you need no introduction. You have taken the stand when it comes to Malayali Lives Matter. And Sini, the stage is yours. Feel free to take on.
Hello, everyone. It's so good to see everyone on this call. It is a very important conversation that we are having today. And, you know, as we're speaking together, there's a lot of things that are coming to mind. And I just want to say that I'm really proud of you all. All of you guys who came to this conversation today, all the aunties and uncles, all of the people, all the young people that came, I'm proud of you. You know why? Because this conversation is long overdue in our community. So on this panel, we have Sajan Kurian. He ran for the House for Florida's 92nd district. We also have Peter Jacob, also who had ran for the House in New Jersey's 7th congressional district, and Kevin Olickal, who also ran for the House in Illinois' 16th district. We have 3 Malayali men who have run for political office. And on this panel, we also have young activists who are really doing the grassroots work of what it means to dismantle racism. We have Alan Ajit from New York. He also serves as the South Asian liaison for Senator Kevin Thomas. We have Isis Polouse, also a senior in the Bay Area. She's on the CVHS Madrigal's top choirs in that area, and also has actively supported the Black Lives Matter movement. We have Kennita Kumpiluvely, and she is a final year law student at Buffalo University, and she has formerly worked for Congressman Joseph Crowley. And we also have Joshua Mangalam, who is in Tampa, who has advocated for gun law reform after the Stoneman Douglas High School shooting. So we have a very active panel today for the grassroots level movement. I want to share that as everyone was speaking, I was noticing that there's really a disconnect that's happening here. There's a disconnect about the word Black. What is Black, right? In American history, the word Black is in reference to race. That is the way you look phenotypically, okay? Sometimes what we're seeing is in the Indian community, in the Malayali community, the South Asian community, aunties and uncles are looking at the word Black as a colorist issue, right? It's the color of our skin and not the race. Even legislator Annie Paul has discussed that before she came to this country, she had never met a Black person. She had never met maybe a white person, you know? So our interaction that we are having with different races in this country is different than what we had in India, right? So that is the difference of explaining what the term Black means. In this country, it's referred to race, and in India, we're still referring to it as color, right? So for the aunties and uncles who are listening, and for the young generation, we have to realize, Nina and Parmiza, thank you so much for calling out the colorism and racism in our community, because those two are related in many ways. So for when we understand how we are dismantling racism begins at home. Having the conversation begins at home. That is where the work lies. The work lies at home in the conversation, right? So I want to throw this question to Sajan Kurian. How do we understand how to speak to our parents when we come from 2 different cultural backgrounds and we're trying to communicate the history that is existent and racism that is existent in this country?
First of all, I want to thank, can you hear me?
Yes.
First of all, I want to thank FOMAA for arranging this wonderful opportunity of conversation between all of us. This is something that I've been waiting for past 25 years now. So being an immigrant, you know, halfway through, I grew up in India, in Mumbai, and half of it is over here. You know, it is difficult for us to differentiate. Coming back to your question, I'll give me a minute. So denial is a big problem, you know, and like you said, you hit everything. I mean, it's hard for me to come back to the same topic, but you know, you have to break the stereotypes, and especially it starts from us, from at home, and the healing process and healing wounds is not easy because this is centuries old, and overnight it doesn't happen. I was running for office myself, you know, um, you know, to go out there and express yourself and try to be somebody that who wants to make a difference in the society. It is difficult, so especially when you don't have backup from your own society, from your own Asian American people. You have to be a one-man person going out there, trying to make a difference in the society. And others say, "Oh, you go forward. I'd be right there behind you." As a person of color, it was difficult for me to make ends meet here. Came here from nothing to be who I am today. And I'm proud that we are having this conversation. Again, repeat, I appreciate all the panelists before I go off the subject here. It is out of frustration, and I'm happy that we had this conversation with all the wonderful people here. And I wanted to give an advice to all the people that are here. I know I'm going off subject here. Remember, everything starts from home, and you have to ask yourself how much you can make, how much of a difference can you make by yourselves? The thing is, we all have the subject. Like the panelist Nina said, it is difficult, whether if it's Telugu or I know 7 other languages myself. So it brings in a different perspective as a South Asian myself. Institutional racism, on all this kind of stuff that can be addressed. But again, if Sini can repeat that question once more, I appreciate it. I know.
No, we're just speaking about how do we combat the racism when we hear it in our homes.
First of all, education, like Annie Paul and all the other officials mentioned here, even Senator. We all have to, first of all, you got to talk to your mom, you got to talk to your dad. That I love the BMW analogy that we had. What Nina said. That is still there. We cannot deny the fact. It is there for my sister too. You have to have a guy who has to be like high profile and stuff like, what? We need to stop that. It starts from your own home. To have that conversation itself, this advocacy, like the judges, advocacy without action doesn't work, my dear people. We have a lot of panelists here and people who are listening to us. Recently I had to bail out a child, a college student who came to South Florida, that's where I'm from, who was arrested for racial profiling. Okay. I had to get a high profile lawyer. I believe she's on the panel. I don't want to steal her thunder, but, I asked her father's permission. Can we, speak on her behalf? The police officer who arrested her for, refused to accept her driver's license as a real one. And he kept on saying that because, this is what we do. You immigrants come here. That itself has to stop. How do we do that? Unless we engage ourselves, this conversation is good, but we got to go out there and talk to people, mingle, coexist. Get NAACP. I'm a lifetime member of NAACP. How many people are members or even participate in that? So, like Judge George and Judge Matthew said, unless you run for office, win or lose, you will not make a difference. But again, I'm handing it back to the panel for further conversation. Again, if at all Ms. Jacobs is on there, her perspective of the real life scenario should be given an opportunity if the panel and FOMAA allows.
I do agree that we do need civic engagement to make change. With that being said, it's also important to really tackle the words and the rhetoric that we're using. As Malayali Americans, we use the word karambin, karambi. As North Indians in Hindi, they say kallu or kalawala, right? So those are words, right? They're not necessarily pejorative in their nature, meaning it translates directly to Black person, but they're used in a way to demean or belittle Black people in the way that we're saying it, right? And so when we use those words and that rhetoric, it's harmful and it's racist and it's anti-Black. And we have to call that out. So this question is for Peter as well as Kevin. Either of you guys can respond. But have you guys ever been in a time where people had said the word karambin or kallu And how do we deal with that type of rhetoric when we hear it from our own family members, our parents, our siblings?
I could start out.
Go ahead, Peter.
Thank you. First, let me begin and thank everybody for making this happen. So my name is Peter Jacob. I had the opportunity to run for U.S. House. I'm a social worker in our community, and I serve communities of color and many of the most vulnerable. And I see this day in and day out, the impacts of it. And the reason I bring that together is those people in those communities are not a coincidence. They're not just there because they're lazy and they didn't want to work. Likewise, when we use that language, it stems from a place, right? In order for our community to identify with another community, we need to have solidarity. And if we need solidarity, we need to be able to identify with that community. And that goes back, and if you may indulge me here with some history. You know, Malcolm X said that we didn't land on Plymouth Rock, the rock landed on us. They were brought here as slaves from Africa. Likewise, if you look at us in India, we have a different trajectory. You know, there's a reason why Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492. He was looking to loot India and our spices. What kicked off the American Revolution? The Boston Tea Party. Where did they get the tea from? The tea came from looted communities in India. We need to identify with the Black community, the Native American and Hispanic community, especially the current brothers and sisters and they who are crossing from Central America, from all those countries, Honduras, El Salvador, all those countries who are coming here, chasing their resources. We are here today, and let's acknowledge this fact. We are here today because of white supremacy, the white supremacy and the colonialism that still exists. And we are doing what our Hispanic and Latino brothers are doing. We're just following our resources. So when we come to this country, right, we identify the white male as the ideal. So we like to copy what they are doing in order to be successful. We speak like them, we act like them. And so we end up adopting language like them. So it is our job to understand this history, to understand why we are using the word Karumbin or Karumbi, because that's just the nutshell. Below that is a deeply, deeply rooted investment into white supremacy that we as Malayalis have invested in. And we have to do this education, and I'm grateful to be a part of this conversation to get the word out.
Thank you for that. Kevin, do you have any thoughts on that? We can't hear you, Kevin. Your mic is turned off.
Okay, sorry. So I think everything Peter just said and Sajan just said earlier all hold true. There's a lot of history that has to be unpacked. What we often see hear our parents and our older generation kind of talk, the way they talk about the African American community. These are stereotypes, narratives that have been perpetuated for generations. And so for our generation, the first generation that's here, the responsibility kind of falls on us to be able to educate our parents about these issues, and we have to do it with patience, because it is a very difficult issue. People that are born and brought up here don't even understand the issue. So when we talk to our parents about these issues, let's do it with a little bit of patience and understanding. And I think with everything that's happened these last couple of weeks, I've seen so many great resources that people have put out there explaining the history, of white supremacy in America, how South Asians in America have been, often we all know the story of the model minority, the myth that's been perpetuated. There's a lot of great history behind that we can use to teach our parents about how, even though their experience is very difficult, they struggle to get here. Our experience is very different than the African American experience, and so it's really important that we take the time to educate our parents and do it, like I said earlier, do it with the patience and understanding. But it's going to take a while. It's going to be a long process. And so, but unfortunately, it really does lie on us as children here who had the opportunity to be educated here and have those relationships with people from other cultures. Because like our parents may have been here 30, 40 years, but they really came into communities and really only for the most part, interacted with our own communities and really didn't branch out. And so it's a learning experience for them.
Thank you for sharing that. We do have to be patient, and we also have to educate ourselves, right? And we also have to look inward. You know, when have we been complicit in anti-Blackness? When have we participated or perpetuated that? You know, it's also looking within ourselves and checking within ourselves, right? So when we look at what's happening now, this is really a watershed moment in global history, right? The Black Lives Matter movement combined with the pandemic that's happening, there's really a little bit more listening that's actually happening because people are at home taking in the content, right? And so during this time, we're also trying to understand, okay, how can we get involved? And that's why the Malayali South Asian community is here today. I want to ask our young activists, you know, you guys are in high school and you guys have already taken a stand. You guys have already done the work. Alan, Isis, and Kennita and Joshua, if either of you want to share, how did you guys get involved in activism? And what is the first step that anyone of any age can take to help and be in solidarity for the Black Lives Movement, especially when we don't know where to start?
If I could start off, so for myself, right? This is for me, posting on Instagram, right, or on social media. I'm not someone who posts all that often, right? But I think this year, especially starting with Ahmed Arbery's case, that really sparked my interest into like posting about, like raising awareness about all these types of stuff. And I've been guilty of not posting about past events that have happened. So I think we need to start posting these kind of stuff, raising awareness. It doesn't matter like how big our platform is, right? Just raising that awareness, getting the word out is very important.
Okay, so for you, are you saying that social media is a tool that you use to build awareness throughout your community and the people of your sphere of influence?
Right. I think that is one part, right? But even more than that, even more than just posting on, that black square or even raising awareness, what you guys talked about before, it always starts at home, right? We need to educate ourselves on this movement. We need to educate our families. We need to be able to call out our family members, our friends, on if they're using any kind of, those derogatory terms or any kind of prejudice that they have. We need to be able to call them out. So that's what's really important. And there's no wrong way of protesting, right? Some people post on Instagram, some people pray, some people protest. It's not like protesting is not for everyone, but there's no wrong way of protesting. This is not a time that we can stay silent. It's a time that we always that we have to act out and get our voice out there.
Yes, exactly. Isis, did you have anything to share?
Yeah. So I would just like to start off by saying, I'm a dark person, and I faced discrimination for my color since I was young. And my sister is my greatest influence. And I think from a young age, teaching me that I was beautiful for being the color that I am has taught me to stand up for the community around me, the Black community. And I think the reason that especially the Indian community is so incoherently racist towards Black people is because of two things. And that is the idea of model minority and Britain's colonization. Britain's colonization. So model minority is a destructive belief by white people that Asians are the ideals, and we can, we have built ourselves up from nothing, and Black people are lazy because even though they're not like enslaved anymore, like they could be like where we are. And that idea is extremely harmful because that's not true at all. Black people are just not given the resources that we've been given. If it weren't for the injustices faced by Black people, none of us would be in America right now. So the idea of model minority is so destructive, and that's one of the reasons why I believe that Indians have a hard time being considering Blacks as equal. We think that we're better than them because we're considered the model minority, which is not true. Another thing is the influence of Britain's colonization. And when they colonized, people who were favored were the people who looked most like them, who were lighter in complexion. And because that was drilled into our heads for generations, we started to believe that, oh my God, the lighter I am, the more beautiful I am, the more opportunities I will get. So that is one of the other reasons why that stigma has stayed in our minds for so long, why it's so shameful to be dark. And that is a stigma we need to break in our communities. Going back to what I've done and what we can do, I attended to the George Floyd protest put together by my high school. At first, my parents were not supportive of me of doing that. They were quite upset that I did that. But after seeing my pictures and my interviews of me doing it, they were more open to the idea of me going out and using my voice. And a first step that you could do to show your support for the Black community is signing petitions. No one's really talked about this, but signing petitions is extremely beneficial. Also, on top of signing petitions, voting. I know some people are not of age right now, but we've been fighting for our right to vote since just the beginning, and we've finally been given that, and people don't take advantage of that. And for our election next year, I'm pretty sure, I'm not gonna talk about politics, but we need to use our voices to make change. And yeah, protesting is not something everyone can do, but any little thing such as signing a petition, donating, voting counts.
Joshua, did you have anything to add on to that?
Yeah, good evening, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank FOMAA for giving me the opportunity to express my views in this discussion. So my name is Joshua Mangalam, and I am a youth rep of MACF in Tampa, and I'm a rising junior at Strawberry Crest High School. So, I mean, there has been a lot of chaos going on, and one thing I did want to add is with all this chaos happening, a lot of people might be lost as to what can I do to contribute to this. So one thing I would say, you need to stay informed, and instead of letting somebody else influence you, you should try to do your own research, see what is it I can do in order to help out, or see in this situation happening, what is exactly happening, what am I hearing, what is true, what is not true. And maybe with that research you could find out, okay, maybe I could do a small donation, okay, maybe there's something happening nearby that I can get involved in. And I feel like that's one way that everyone can find out what's best for them to do in order to.
Great, thank you Joshua. I also had an understanding of what is it, because right now, as we're experiencing this as a global movement, in a couple of weeks the news cycle is going to change, and people are going to be moving on to different things in terms of their focus and attention span, right? What does it take to be in this for the long haul? How do we stay motivated to not just put up an Instagram post for a one-time action, or donate for a one-time situation? Kennita, do you have any suggestions on what it takes to really be active in the movement, active in social justice for the long haul?
Thank you, FOMA, for organizing this event. And I think the most important thing we can do is to create conversation, whether it be family, whether it be friends, and to keep conversation going, because this cannot be a matter that just stops in a week. It cannot just die off. So education comes into play. So keep educating yourself. Keep sending, we're so connected by technology at this point, and we're sharing useless information, but make sure you share useful information. So keep on sharing, keep on, finding your voice. I must share this article that Deepa Iyer wrote back in May of 2019. It talks about finding your voice in to bring about social change. So not I think Alan, everyone said it already, we cannot be Sini, we cannot be you. We all have our own voice. Some people write well, so keep on writing about this matter. Some people, draw, keep on drawing, let your art speak. If you're afraid of speaking out, let your art speak, and keep on talking. And when you do talk to people, actually, there's a reason why we have 2 ears and a mouth. So listen to each other. And before, I think this generation is very hot-headed. So when we hear something that we don't like, we're so ready to attack someone. but that won't bring about change. Attacking another person, violence is not going to bring about change. So listen, show empathy, and amplify Black African American voices, because that's who should be heard right now. We say Black all lives matter, but we see this general disregard to Black lives. So for me, like I went to a predominantly like white high school. So undergrad and college was when I got, really I started researching, or like I started, talking to people and hearing conversations and stories of my fellow, classmates, is why I'm here. Because I don't want to see my friend in George Floyd's situation. I don't want to see any human in George Floyd's situation, because that's just utterly disrespectful. So educate yourself and keep on having conversation with family, friends, and so on. That's what I would say.
That's a good point, Kennita. No, I appreciate you saying that, because the truth of it is that all lives can't matter until Black lives matter, right? Because Black lives matter Black people are being disproportionately killed in this country than anyone else, right? So that is why we're focusing on Black lives at the moment, not all lives. And we also have to realize that, in the racial hierarchy, there is whiteness at the top and Blackness at the bottom, right? So when we fall in between, right, we have to check ourselves as to why we have internalized this white supremacy, right? Why we have internalized self-hatred. And that speaks to what you guys have all been speaking about, Peter, Kevin, about how we have taken on what we've learned from British white colonizers, right? And we've taken that on as something for our own community, and we've applied it and projected it to other people. And so that internal work is necessary and required. And Kennita, I love how you mentioned, let's defer to our Black leaders, right? When asking for what to do next, right? At this time, the Black community is grieving. So I do suggest that we don't ask them questions and we don't go to the community about what can I do? What can I do? We have to do that work ourselves. But I do think all of us, if you have a Black friend, if you have Black friends, if you have Black coworkers, reach out to them now and say, I stand with you. I'm here for you. I hear you. All right. That is what solidarity means. Using your words for action, using your words to show support, right? And again, this is a long-term haul. This is not just one Instagram post. This is not just one action. We have to be able to move our bodies, move our voice, move our pockets, so that we can invest in a more equitable future for America. So that is what this discussion is about. I hope FOMAA, we're going to wrap up now. I hope FOMAA that you guys can, continue this discussion over time, even when the news cycle ends in a couple of weeks and people start moving on to different discussions and different topics. We have to realize this is long-term work. And I hope that as a Malayali communities, as people of color, we step up to the plate, because historically, we've allowed ourselves to be complicit. And we know now, as a community during this global revolution, that that is not acceptable and that is not okay, because our silence is violence. And I hope that that is what we can take as we move on from today. So tonight, when you guys all end this call, I encourage you, if you are at home right now with your parents, mommy, papa, if you're there with your aunties and uncles, if you are there with your children, have dinner together, have a dosha, have chicken curry, whatever you need, and talk about this. Talk about what we just talked about. Have these conversations regularly. That is how we dismantle racism. Have dinner together and have the hard conversations. People say, if you're having a hard time talking about something, that's probably the conversation you need to have. And I hope that's the message that you guys take forward in this.
So let's meet Joe. So what do you think about having a follow-up conversation with our young activist in another Zoom session?
I think that's a great idea, and I think that's productive. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea too.
I do too.
Okay, so FOMAA will arrange another Zoom session exclusively for our young activists and budding politicians. So hopefully we can meet again.
Okay, great. I'm throwing it back to Angela. And and as we close out this conversation.
Thank you so much, Sini, and thank you, youth activists, leader, community leaders. I believe that this last session really hits hard to home. Your voices really did make a difference, and I honestly have nothing else to really add. I was prepping for, backing you guys up in some way or form, but nothing. You guys led this conversation from beginning to end, and I'm proud to say, and I'm proud to hear that a general secretary actually stepped up and wanted to do a follow-up call, because it's your voices that matter. You are our future, and the fact that we're able to come as one in such a short amount of time, that speaks volumes. So I think first and foremostly, thank all the moderators and panelists for allocating their time. We're going to be following up with the youth and to do a follow-up call for sure. And as a final vote of thanks,